Hello. I really don't know how to do an intro anymore. I don't think I've ever really had an intro, but yeah, no, new background. New background. I have switched things around in my room. I will add a picture somewhere around here of what my desk looked like before and after. I just moved my art desk over here to where I originally sat for my main desk, which is over here, and kind of just did like a makeshift L-shaped desk situation, but that's not why we are here to talk today. Writing. I do a lot of it, even though I only have a poetry book and a horror anthology published. Yeah. But recently it has come to my attention that while generative AI is usually more of an issue I see in the art community, especially as a digital artist and illustrator, recently I've been finding out about some authors that have been either using ChatGPT or some form of generative AI to edit for them, or potentially using it to write the book or fully rewrite things instead of just basic edits of like spell check and things like that. Or like, oh, maybe you should change this with this. And some of them are apparently not doing the best job at editing, and granted, I edit my own stuff. I have a handful of other books in the work. Editing is not easy. I know that for a fact and from experience, but I do multiple rounds of editing, including printing out physical copies because I don't edit long stints of text on screen very well. But I've never considered, nor will I ever consider using AI to help me. I mean, outside of just basic spell check, but apparently some of these authors have been leaving their prompts in the books, including authors they are essentially ripping off in a sense because AI, especially generative AI, is a conglomerate of essentially stolen work. Now, you could argue by using a different author as part of a prompt, you could potentially argue imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, but I would like to say no. This is not one of those cases. This is blatant theft. As authors, we have our own voices. We can try our best to sound like other authors. But at the end of the day, we create our own world through our own voices, in a sense. So we will have our own writing styles. But, I mean, granted, trying to write as another author is a great writing exercise. I will give you that. Like, I remember when I started just giving myself writing challenges, I would occasionally attempt to write like some of my favorite authors. And through that, I would like learn different things. I was just like, okay, I have more of a handle on this than on this. I like this as a concept of how to approach this. Maybe I can find a way to work that into how I work. But generative AI in general, I am not a fan of, especially as an artist. And I know this isn't a new thing. There are e- even just a few years ago when the AI stuff really started kicking off and people were using ChatGPT constantly. I mean, that's not saying they don't do that now, but there were a handful of people using it to pump out books that are complete and utter nonsense. So, over on my art channel, Shorter Than the Easel, I do a series that I started. I finally get around to episode 2 because I was kind of stalling, I will admit, on the lesson, because I promised a lesson on how to draw hands and feet to what the hardest things to draw. But don't worry, this will make sense. This will make sense. Part of me is thinking, because I started that series because of the rise in especially a lot of other artists working generative AI into their workflow or starting to rely on it as a crutch because they potentially might not think they can get their work to the point they want to get it to. And I started the series Anyone Can Art as a way to be like, hey, yeah, no, you don't need generative AI. Art is a culmination of skills that anyone can learn. I'm thinking maybe I should sort of rework, return to writing, and instead of it being focusing on my work and my books, because I'm working on a handful of ones, and I am getting further along in Opposing Forces. My was gonna be young adult, might just be new adult fantasy book, and I realized recently there are definitely things about that story that I didn't even realize were themes in the books because originally Opposing Forces was supposed to be like opposing families, sort of like a Romeo and Juliet kind of feud, but they're like warring over land and things like that, and like a stolen kingdom, and it's just like, oh well, what's the actual story here? And it kind of turned into more of the opposing forces being the different generations trying to work out how to end these wars between the families because instead of fighting for the land, they are destroying it, and they don't even know what they're fighting for. They were just raised into this fight. But a lot of that work, A, is very boring. It's a lot of me just staring at the screen, just going, and just making weird noises like, hmm, hmm. Literally, that's all I do when I write. It's like, or because I just recently, where did I put it? I recently did the thing I mentioned earlier and printed out a copy of Opposing Forces. It's unfinished. The draft isn't done, but I wanted to work something out and I couldn't really figure it out, so I figured I'd read through it because I'm adding chapters in between, doing like a little POV switch between the families. So I want to make sure everything meshes while trying to work out some other things. But but yeah, again, it's going to be a lot of reading. A lot of things that aren't really entertaining to watch and make content about. But I was thinking of maybe shifting my return to writing series from focusing on writing this or having the main focus of it being on writing this to sort of like what I do with anyone can art and just have it be about writing in a sense, especially as an indie author and about make it about like formatting and stuff like that and editing because look, I get it. The indie author route, not easy. We a lot of us go the route because we don't have the luxury of the weight that comes with querying different agents and then trying to find publishers through those agents. It's a long period of waiting with that. And a lot of us don't have the luxury of the wait. Like I started my author journey sooner than I expected when I got ghosted out of my job back in what was that 2022? And I was writing my poetry book when it happened. Like there are 3 poems in Poems for Pennies about that exact thing. Like it's literally called Poems for Pennies because I didn't know what was going on with my job. I didn't have the luxury of being like, "Oh yeah, no, I'm going to send out a bunch of query letters and try to find an agent and then try to get it published traditionally." So I know how it feels to do it all yourself and not be able to afford someone to edit the book for you, someone to format it for you. I literally taught myself how to format through making these kinds of things. I learned about things like the gutter margin, like this whole strip in the center. That's the gutter margin. Like that is the gutter. So the gutter margin is literally that bit where the pages end, not end, the where they meet, where the pages meet. That is the gutter margin. Like that side, you have the regular margin and then gutter margin on the side. That way it doesn't get swallowed by the book. And you don't feel like you have to rip the book in half just to read what's at the middle. Like I had to learn about that stuff. I had to learn about front matter. I had to learn about the copyright page and how to set that up. I had to learn all of that myself. And it can be hard. But being an indie author doesn't necessarily mean you have to turn to things like ChatGPT to get these things done. You don't need to use ChatGPT to, I guess, fully fix your book because there's a difference between editing and just fixing. And from what I've been hearing about some of the ones where the prompts or just like the responses ChatGPT leaves afterwards, where it says like why it made these changes were left in, you don't need that. So maybe, and give me your feedback in the comments. Maybe I could swap return to writing into something like that, where I just show you what I have learned along the way as an indie author and am still learning. So, comment below. Give me your feedback. Hang on. No, this thumb. That there. Now you can still see it. There you go. I can't do a thumbs up for crap. Why is it so angled? Is my thumb just really weirdly? My thumb just weirdly. No, now it's fine. I think it's just perspective. Yeah, perspective. Perspective. It's not mirrored. The camera isn't mirrored. The feed I'm looking at isn't mirrored. But yeah, no. Give me your feedback. Would you guys be interested in a series like that for here, where I teach you what I've learned, things that can be helpful? Yeah, just feedback. So, like, comment, subscribe. Oh wait, I have a whiteboard. I just realized that. Well, blackboard technically. I can write that. Hang on. So, yeah. Yeah. Can you read that? I don't think you can read that. It says like, comment, and subscribe. I don't think you can read that. I'm looking at the screen. Hang on, glasses. That didn't help at all. Hopefully you guys can read that. So yeah, like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.